Welcome to MMA-AI's UFC 314 AI predictions. We have a pretty big event here, so we're going to jump right into the fights. Let's start off with Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopes. What are the odds here? Alexander, we've got minus 112 for AI, and Vegas odds are 106 for Diego. So this is going to be considered an expected value winner. So I've done profit backtesting. I want to put the results of that up on my Patreon for free. Basically, what I found was that parlaying the expected value fights, the positive EV fights, is generally the most profitable strategy. So what I ended up doing was actually playing Diego Lopes and Cedric Dumas for this event with most of my units. Although I also tend to just do down the line, because down the line also showed profitability, just not quite as high. But I just like playing the fights too. So if you're looking for the highest ROI, I do recommend doing Cedric Dumas and Diego Lopes. Sean Woodson is actually a pretty good one too, because it's almost EV. But what you have to understand is the algorithms that I'm using a binary classification algorithm. It's really good at deciding who's going to win and who's going to lose. It's not that great at the confidence scores. The confidence scores are not the fundamental advantage of binary classification algorithms. So the calibration is pretty good. It actually, the log loss specifically slightly beats Vegas by a tiny hair, and it doesn't always beat Vegas when I retrain the model. But in general, you'll see things like Jim Miller versus Chase Hooper. You'll be like, oh, Jim Miller is super undervalued. Maybe, but also the algorithm doesn't like picking fights on those extreme ends of the scale. Like once you hit like 70-75% confidence score, the AI tends to just cluster and stop right about there. It won't go farther than that. It likes clustering these fights around 50-60% or 50-65%. So take all that what you will. You can look at the back test profit on my Patreon here soon. But I would recommend just to start this off with Diego Lopes, Cedric Dumas, and then whoever else you want based on the information you're given here and your own expertise. All right, starting off, Diego Lopes. He is the underdog. We are picking him, and it looks like that's going to largely be because of his age, his grappling effectiveness. Like this is stuff like control, I think, submission attempts. His kickboxing is significantly better, shockingly. Alexander Volkanovski is very good, but Alexander Volkanovski has also lost several of his last fights, and the machine learning algorithm uses decayed averages, meaning the fights in the last 1.5 years count for the most, and fights after that start falling off when you're doing averages. So although Volkanovski is still a very good kickboxer, his previous fights, he hasn't shown great kickboxing. Let's look at the individual stats here. Submission attempts, definitely for Diego Lopes by a large margin. Round 1 ground strikes per minute. That's usually a pretty good one. It means that they know that they can get it to the ground, and when they get it to the ground, they're very effective. And they do that from the very beginning of the fight. So one thing about the takedown and control stats is I've noticed round 1 takedown and controls and round 1 clinch tend to be quite predictive because it shows that the person has the capability and the game plan, and they have a game plan that they're capable of implementing. And their game plans usually take them down quick and beat them up. So he has not been KO'd nearly as much as Volkanovski, and this cluster right here you're seeing shows that he's younger, faster, probably stronger. Alexander Volkanovski is starting to age out. We know that the absolute peak age of UFC fighters is right around 32, 33. After 33, the decline starts fairly precipitously, and it happens faster in the smaller weight classes. So because this is a small weight class, I think the model is going to kind of recognize that Diego Lopes has a major attribute advantage here. Submission attempts, KOs against, round 1 leg strikes against, so people aren't really hitting him that much in round 1, and his round 1 clinch. Okay, so yeah, it looks like Diego Lopes is going to go immediately to close the distance in round 1, and he's probably going to stay there for the rest of the fight. Now, Volkanovski's advantages, significant strikes landed round 1, adjusted performance, meaning guys who don't let themselves get hit in round 1, Volkanovski's very good at hitting them. And head accuracy. Volkanovski's head accuracy is very high, considering that he's not, generally known as a grappler or a wrestler that takes him down and hits him in the head. So he's fairly pinpoint, and he tends to land a lot of strikes in round 1. So Diego Lopes needs to close the distance, and he can probably win this fairly handily. But let's see what the model thinks about this. Why did the model pick Lopes? Surprisingly, submission attempts decayed average is the most significant one for Diego Lopes. I'm not going to lie, I think that's the first time I've ever seen that. So the model really thinks Diego Lopes is going to pull him to the ground and submit him. Interesting. I guess that plays into his whole game plan is to get him down, and his effectiveness at his game plan is quite good. Very interesting. So if you're going to make a play on this, I mean, Lopes for a submission victory is actually pretty good. I wouldn't have guessed that, but that's what the model's showing. Then we have age, and less KOs for Diego. KOs make a pretty big difference in a fighter's career. Like if you get KO'd 10 times before you're age 30, you're going to fight like you're 34. Age again, and then significant strike-land ratio. So he tends to land more hits on his opponents than his opponents land on him. And again, submission attempts. It's really valuing that submission attempt. Very, very interesting. May want to make a play for Lopes submission. For Volkanovski, it is head land. Just like, okay, this makes sense because head land decayed average diff, that's like literally the raw amount of head strike landed. And Volkanovski has been in so many 5-round fights that his head land stat is going to be pretty inflated. His head defense is very good, right? His kickboxing is pinpoint. His defense is very good, but who cares about your kickboxing defense and how much you hit them in the head over 5 rounds if the guy is just going to close the distance, take you down, and try and submit you. So I'm really liking Lopes in this fight. I think this is one of my bigger plays. Let's go to Bryce Mitchell versus Gene Silva. Bryce Mitchell, I don't remember if the big KO he suffered from Josh Emmett was his last fight or one before that or something. But that was a pretty nasty KO, and it took him a while to come back from that. But let's look at the overall stats here. Now, Gene Silva's advantage is that he was like a mediocre fighter until he joined the Fighting Nerds, and then suddenly everyone in the Fighting Nerds just started dominating people. Like, he's got some really nasty round 1 KOs and finishes. So, it's hard to take a lot out of this. This is a nice combination when you have this strong wrestling advantage combined with this nice grappling advantage. But this is actually a weird one because the AI gives this almost a coin flip. And the odds are giving this massively to Gene Silva. Or Gene Silva. I don't even know. So, I mean, if you're going to bet against the AI, this might be a decent one to bet against it because the odds are so skewed. But again, in my profit backtesting, just going by the expected value between the AI and the Vegas odds doesn't work that well if you're picking the guy that the AI doesn't pick. It works well when you're already narrowing down the AI's decisions to just the expected value, the positive expected value fighters, but it doesn't work the opposite way. So I'm probably still going to play Gene Silva, but I wouldn't think that it's a terrible idea to play Bryce on this. I think there is some value here. But let's see the big advantages. Okay, we have a whole cluster here on takedown defense and takedown success against for Bryce. Bryce is very difficult to take down. Much more difficult, apparently, than Gene Silva. He also has way more round 1 takedown attempts, so Bryce Mitchell knows what he wants. He wants to get you to the ground. He wants to submit you. I'm guessing submission attempts is probably higher, wherever that is. That's actually fairly even for submission attempts adjusted performance. But raw submission attempts is higher for Bryce. Submission attempts adjusted performance means you do a lot of submission attempts against guys that usually don't allow a lot of submission attempts. That stat's even. So they're pretty evenly matched against all of their opponents' stats for submission attempts. But Bryce Mitchell just generally attempts more submissions in the raw stat, if that makes any sense. Round 1 control time, huge advantage for Bryce. Honestly, I mean, I can see Bryce just getting Gene down and then like taking him out once on the ground, just either through control or through submission. I think he's got a better chance than the odds are giving him. But the AI still thinks Gene is going to win because of probably this right here. Big spike in significant strikes ratio adjusted performance. So guys who usually outstrike their opponent by raw numbers, Gene Silva outstrikes them by a lot. Gene Silva also fights more often. He hasn't been in the UFC for as long. Lands more head strikes, his head strike accuracy. So basically this is coming down to Gene Silva lands a lot more strikes than his opponent lands. So even if Bryce gets him down, Gene Silva seems fairly slippery in that he's going to be able to avoid taking too much damage, and he may be pretty good at getting back up. What does reversals look like? Reversals is fairly even. Yeah, so Jean wants to keep this standing. If he can keep it standing, he can beat up Bryce Mitchell, it looks like. But Bryce Mitchell's advantages in control time, in not getting controlled, in takedown attempts, in takedown defense, like every grappling and wrestling stat is in Bryce Mitchell's favor. That's interesting. Honestly, I might just make a play for Bryce on this one, even though I'm betting against the AI. This is a coin toss fight for the AI. I think I am actually going to probably put a little bit on Bryce just for the value, even though I generally don't recommend betting against the AI. Now, the AI, from the AI's perspective, it is wrestling and grappling that favors Bryce Mitchell. But this one is huge. Significant strikes land, decade adjusted performance, decade average. In Jean Silva's recent fights, he lands way more hits on his opponent than his opponent lands on him, and that's in the standing, and that's on the ground, that's in the clinch, that's just all over. It's a very powerful stat. I think that's the number one most predictive stat, is do I just hit the other guy more often than they hit me? And the fact this is adjusted performance means that he's taking guys that almost always outstrike his opponents to a bad ratio of striking against him. So relative to like the entire division, Jean Silva is pretty nasty at figuring out how to hit you a lot and not get hit. Age, body defense, yeah, the rest of this is the big one. Bryce can win this. Bryce can take him down and not take damage and win a lay and pray. He can also win by submission. But boy, he showed some weakness in that Josh Emmett fight. He is hittable. What is his head defense at real quick? Head defense actually favors Bryce. See? I think I'm going to make a little play on Bryce. Yeah, I'm going to do a little play on Bryce. I'm not necessarily expecting to win, but I just think the value is pretty good. I think people are underestimating him. Okay, Dan Ige, I don't know how to say his name either, versus Sean Woodson. We have a fairly even-looking fight, but the AI has Sean Woodson as a significant favorite. About even with the Vegas odds, if I'm not mistaken, just off by a little bit. I did actually make a parlay with Sean Woodson and the other guys, Lopes and someone else too, because I think they're all going to win, and then the AI predicts them, and they're all either positive expected value or close to it. Sean Woodson has the significant strike ratio advantages. He's a little bit younger. He doesn't have the effective grappling. Ige has better kickboxing and better effective grappling. So if Ige's on top, then he's probably going to be doing better than Sean. But if Sean can keep him on the ground and Sean can stay on top, that kind of nullifies the effective grappling here. But why? Body accuracy is super high for Dan Ige. That's generally not like crazy predictive, but it's interesting that it's such a stark difference. Does Ige go for body shots a lot? It's interesting. If he does go for body shots a lot and he's this accurate, then that actually favors Ige if this fight goes long, because body shots really take the wind out of you. So that's interesting to note. Round 1 strikes adjusted performance. Sean Woodson tends to outstrike his opponents in round 1 by a significant margin compared to Dan Ige. Significant strikes landed in general, significant strike ratio adjusted performance. So he takes guys with good significant striking ratios and out ratios them, which is always a powerful metric. So Woodson's good at just landing hits all over the place. His takedowns, he doesn't get taken down that much. His takedown defense, Ige's takedown defense is a little bit better. Control time. Woodson doesn't get controlled as much as Ige. That's interesting too. But Ige's reversals is better. Reversals is not that big a deal. But again, it's kind of like Ige has these big advantages and a couple stats that generally aren't super important to the model. They don't have super high predictive correlation or accuracy or relationships with other stats like reversals and body accuracy, which is probably why Woodson is favored here. Woodson's big advantage is just the striking. General striking, he's just generally better, and he's got a big reach. Now, that's actually a good one. The significant strike ratio combined with a reach ratio advantage like this is pretty significant, and I know the model believes that too from the last several events. We've seen this be very powerful combination of stats, reach and significant strike ratio, especially adjusted performance. Yeah, so it just seems like Woodson's going to get him in the general striking. Like I can probably see this going to decision. Woodson just lands more strikes than Ige does. I don't really see anything like stands out for Ige. Ground defense. Round 1 ground strikes a minute. So Ige can get him down. Clinch strikes. So Ige closes the distance pretty well. And when he gets him on the ground, he tends to mess his opponents up. That may be why the body accuracy is so high. He hits him in the bottom a lot when he gets on top. Head defense is a little bit better for Ige too. Yeah, I don't think that's going to matter if Woodson's significant strike ratios and stuff are so much better. Yeah, I kind of see this as a decision for Woodson. I don't see anything like particularly crazy here. I think the reach and the significant strike ratio is going to play the biggest role. Let's see what the model thinks. The model thinks that Woodson has a lot of advantages. The main one being head defense. Very interesting. Head defense and head land. The fact that it thinks the head land is high tells me this is just almost certainly going to decision. Because head land's just the raw stat. So that means that Sean Woodson goes to decisions a lot. He goes to decisions a lot. He outstrikes them. Doesn't seem to get that many KOs or anything. Like submission attempts favors Sean, but it's not crazy. He tends to get more control per minute than his opponent. So he's, not that easy to take down. Yeah, I see Sean Woodson just hitting this guy more than he gets hit. Maybe he goes for a takedown here and there, but I don't think that his game plan is necessarily, I'm just going to out-wrestle this guy. I think it's really, I'm going to kickbox it with him, and if he gives me the opportunity, I'm going to take him down, and I'm going to hit him on the ground too. So I like Woodson for this one a lot. I think there's a lot of value in him. All right, Darren Elkins versus Julian Erosa. We have Julian Erosa, looks a bit younger, a little bit better overall striking, but Elkins has the kickboxing. That might be due to Elkins' KOs, which I know he has quite a few. And Elkins' wrestling's pretty good too, about even grappling. The age, the reach, the days since last fight, all of the stats that we know before the fight, that's days, UFC experience, reach ratio, and age, all those are in Erosa's favor. I think this is another one where there was a big difference between what the AI said the predicted odds should be and what the actual Vegas odds are. I think Elkins was a big underdog, and AI puts him at a 45% chance. And again, that's not a perfectly calibrated number. It's it's the algorithm's best guess at what it is, but that's not what the model performs best at. It doesn't perform best at calibrated win percentages. It works best at who is going to win, 1 or 0. So again, this is one of those fights where I don't think it's stupid to bet on Darren just because I think he might be undervalued, but I don't think he's going to win. So I don't think I'm going to play Darren on this one. The youth experience in Erosa is just really good. Where's the KOs? KO against. Huh. So Darren actually hasn't been KO'd as much as Julian Erosa. Darren's biggest advantages are right here in reversal ratio, round 1 takedown attempts, takedown defense in general, ground defense, round 1 ground strikes a minute, round 1 leg strikes against. He does really well in round 1. So if you think Darren Elkins can just KO him or finish this in round 1, he might be a play. But I think the age of Erosa means that he's going to be a little bit faster. He's not going to get killed in round 1, I don't think. And his distance striking ratio is better, which I think he can just keep Darren off of him. And then what was this? This is head accuracy. Right, so his distance striking ratio is better. His clinch a minute's better. And his youth is better. So I see Erosa just kind of keeping Darren Elkins away from him with his strikes and not leaving the opening for a takedown. And if he does get a takedown, does Darren have the strength to hold him down? I haven't really seen that. Honestly, it looks fairly evenly matched. I think Erosa just has advantages in the most important ones, which is age, speed, head accuracy, distance striking. He can out kickbox him. Darren Elkins' chance to win this is just to out wrestle him. Probably a lay and pray victory, honestly. But because of the age advantage, Darren might start fading in the later rounds, which is when Julian can come back and either get a KO or just outstrike him in round 2 and round 3 and win. But there's a distinct possibility that Darren Elkins takes round 1. I don't necessarily see this as being a big KO or anything. I think this is more likely to go to decision based on Darren Elkins' like round 1 wrestling and grappling. And I think Julian Erosa probably just takes it in the end by decision. The model has a big advantage for age. Yeah. So speed and strength and reflex time, that's all going to be in Erosa's advantage, which is not good if your game plan is to out-wrestle them because his reflexes are going to be strong enough to just avoid the takedowns. Age, days, control per minute. He doesn't get controlled as much as Darren. That's not good for Darren if Darren's plan is to wrestle him. Head defense, he's not going to get hit as much in the head when they're standing. And he tends to win against guys that don't lose very often. Yeah, I think age really is going to play a big factor here. I think Elkins is going to fade. He's going to put on a big show, maybe round 1, and then Erosa is just going to take it away for a decision. Let's move on to Jim Miller versus Chase Hooper. Boy, Chase Hooper. He really has a lot of advantages here. This is one where, because like Vegas says that Chase Hooper is going to win at like, what is it, 80%, 85% chance of win, the model doesn't like making win percentages that high. I think the model said minus 300, and it said for Chase, but like the Vegas odds were like minus 800 or something. Honestly, Chase is just going to win this. And I think a lot of people are just assuming that Chase is free money, so they just keep betting on him, even if they only get a small value out of him. Wow. I mean, where do you begin with this? Reversals is huge for Chase. His grappling is phenomenal. He's a super slippery goose on the ground. He's way younger. He's got a big reach advantage. Jim Miller is a brawler. I've been watching him for a long time. He's really good. He's got that veteran wiliness. He's not going to quit. He's not going to give up. But if you're in a rear naked choke, you don't really have a choice. Significant strike ratio. So you have to understand this is all decade averages. This is the last 1.5 years of fights where Chase Hooper's looked really good and Jim Miller has not looked really good. Even though Jim Miller is a good fighter, he's just getting old. Like, what does Jim have? The only advantages Jim has, we're just going to call that even, knockdowns against. Jim hasn't been knocked down as much and he hasn't been KO'd as much. Actually pretty interesting stats there. Because it shows that Jim Miller has a chin of steel, but Chase isn't chasing the KO. Chase doesn't really care about KOing Jim Miller. He's going to try and submit him. Round 1 ground strikes a minute is the only other advantage for Jim Miller recently. I mean, I think Chase Hooper kind of chases subs when he's on the ground. He's not known for like super strong power or anything. I don't think that really matters that much. I mean, I just think Chase Hooper's going to win. I don't think he's a very valuable pick. Honestly, if you're going to avoid betting on any fight, it's probably this one. Just don't even pick Chase. What's the point? If Jim Miller just lands a crazy knockout shot, it's just not worth the tiny, tiny profit you'd get on Chase. But the model does not like making predictions like this. Does not like making predictions at 77% chance of any fighter winning, and it's predicting 77% chance for Chase. That's kind of crazy. Huge differences in age. Significant strike land ratio, decade adjusted performance, decade average, also in Chase Hooper. So Chase Hooper's just going to hit him a lot. He's got the reach. Yeah, these two combined right here are really important. He gets the striking ratio, and he's got the reach. And he's way younger, so he's going to be way faster. Honestly, I would stay away from this because there's the value is completely squeezed out of Chase. If anything, maybe a couple bucks on Jim, but I just don't think you're going to see that money. I think that's just a loss. You might as well just donate that to Vegas. I'd stay away from this fight, honestly. Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett. Very interesting. Michael Chandler always comes out swinging. He's He looks like champ material for 1 or 2 rounds, and then he just fades. He's just gone. He looks like a Greek god, too. And Paddy Pimblett, I've never seen Paddy Pimblett look like a world beater. This looks like an adult man beating up a child. If you were to ask me who wins Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett a couple years ago, but Michael Chandler's on quite a skid. And Paddy just keeps finding ways to win. I don't know how or why. Way younger, better grappling, wrestling, kickboxing, but Chandler's got overall striking advantage. Let's see what that looks like. Paddy hasn't been KO'd as much, hasn't been knocked down nearly as much. Paddy wins against guys who win. That's the weird thing. Like, I don't feel like Paddy should win as much as he does, but he does. He finds a way to win. Chandler finds a way to lose. It's just bizarre. And Paddy, of course, has way more submission attempts because Chandler just runs in swinging like Donkey Kong. So, of course, that means that Chandler has round 1 strikes advantage. Who would have guessed? Michael Chandler with a round 1 strike advantage over Paddy Pimblett? Who would have guessed? That's like Michael Chandler's MO. Honestly, here's how Michael Chandler wins. He KOs Paddy in the first round. He comes out like just swinging like he always does, and he has big blows, big hands. Knocked out, I think, Dan Hooker. Pretty nasty. So Michael Chandler has a chance to win, but it's a slim chance. Paddy has many ways to win. Paddy's takedown defense is good. Who cares? This is not going to be a takedown. Michael Chandler's not going to try and take down Paddy. Michael Chandler's going to try and hit him hard. The problem is Michael Chandler's been knocked out a lot, which really slows you down. Clinch strikes a minute, goes to Paddy. What else does he have? Round 1 leg strikes against. Michael Chandler's all hands. He lets himself get leg struck. Even though this is an advantage for Chandler. Control time against. He gets controlled a little bit more. Yeah. Paddy wins this. Paddy wins this by submission. Probably rear naked choke. I'm guessing he weathers the storm round 1. And as soon as he weathers the storm, the fight's over. What a bizarre matchup. But from the model's perspective, here's what we see. Biggest stats for Paddy by the model's perspective is age. Makes sense. Chandler's been KO'd a lot, and he's old. Paddy is super young, faster. I can't say stronger, but definitely faster. And submission attempts. So if you're going to make a play on this, I think it makes sense to do Paddy by submission. I don't think Paddy's KOing Michael Chandler. I do think Paddy can take his Michael Chandler's back and rear naked choke him. I think that's quite a healthy play. I'm just going to probably take Paddy to win. But if you want to juice those odds a little bit, Paddy for the submission is a very good bet by the AI. Nikita Krylov versus Dominic Reyes. Honestly, I don't remember Nikita Krylov's last couple fights. I do remember many of Dominic's fights, especially against John Jones, where he looked really good, but he's never really looked good since then. Like, ever since he fought John Jones, he's never really looked good again. Nikita's younger, we know that. Dominic Reyes, I just think he's kind of washed up. His overall striking is quite good. He's always been a really good striker. I mean, honestly, I thought he outstruck John Jones. But he's just getting old, and he's taking so much damage. And everything else is for Krylov. Let's see the individual stats. What stands out here? Krylov has not been KO'd as much. He has not been knocked down as much. Yeah, these are stats called you're washed. When your opponent has this big of a gap between how many times you've been KO'd versus how many times they've been KO'd, it means you're getting washed. Krylov has way more submission attempts. Yeah, because Dominic Reyes is a kickboxer. Krylov has round 1 control time. I do love this stat. All these round 1 wrestling, round 1 takedown attempts, round 1 control time. He knows what he wants. He wants to get you to the ground. He wants to do it in the beginning of the fight and then do whatever he can once he's on top. Okay. I mean, honestly, these stats just kind of speak for themselves. I think Nikita Krylov goes for a takedown early, which Reyes can't defend because he's old and slow and been KO'd a lot, taking a lot of brain damage. And then Nikita just wins by, pummeling him out. Submission attempts are about the same. So this may not be a submission play. This may be a decision play for Nikita. He just gets control and just outstrikes his opponent once he's on the ground. What does Dominic have that can throw a wrench in this? Head strikes landed. That's the raw head strikes landed. That just means you're washed. This is a washed stat. You're in a bunch of 5-round fights, and a lot of them go to the decision. You've taken a lot of damage. He's just taking so much damage. Round 1 strikes, adjusted performance. He does pretty well in round 1, and his significant strike ratio is actually better. He generally outstrikes his opponents, and then he gets knocked out or otherwise loses. Yeah, I mean, Dominic is not known, I think, necessarily as a KO artist. He has a pretty good chance of performing well in the kickboxing for a little bit. But I think as soon as he performs, as soon as he makes Krylov uncomfortable when he's striking, like Krylov kind of realizes that he's getting hit a little bit more than he's hitting him, Krylov's just going to go for the takedown. And these stats seem to say that he can get that takedown quite effectively. Now, from the model's perspective, we have age, submission attempts. Yeah, it thinks that he's going to submit Dominic. This is a very powerful combo of stats. Submission attempts, decade average difference, and takedown attempts, round 1, decade average. Very, very powerful combo here. It means you know what you want and you can implement your game plan. Dominic's advantages here are kickboxing. He's good at protecting his head. He's good at landing more than his opponent lands on him. His body defense is good. His kickboxing body defense is good. Control per minute, opponent decayed. He doesn't get controlled that often, which is, a bit of a monkey wrench. And whatever, leg land, round 1. I don't see Krylov. I don't see Dominic stopping Krylov's takedowns. I think Krylov wins this probably by decision through control time. Okay, Dumas. This was one I definitely am picking Dumas for. Dumas is an underdog. The model has him at 60% win probability. Very interesting. I think the model is really seeing something that other people are not. Michael Oleksiejczuk, just not even going to bother. Big gap in overall striking. That's kind of worrisome. Big gap in kickboxing. But Dumas has younger. The grappling's about the same, and he's got better wrestling. Young and wrestling. Pretty good combo here. Okay. So first, let's look at Michael. Head defense. Big difference. Cedric Dumas gets hit a lot. Head strikes landed. Michael hits people a lot. His body accuracy, his body defense. All of these accuracy and defense and head stats are in favor of Michael. Was that leg strikes against? And then that one is ground defense. His defense is very good. Michael's defense is very high. Interesting. His body and his ground defense, all very good. And he's not been KO'd as much. He also hasn't been knocked down as much. And his win rate's much better. It does seem like Michael has an advantage when it just comes to overall striking and accuracy, striking defense. Because Cedric Dumas seems to have kind of weak defense. He gets hit in the head a lot, he gets KO'd a lot, gets knocked down more. But he's just got this big advantage in days since last fight. So he's very active. And he's got not even a huge age advantage. Big reach advantage, though. Reversals, round 1 control, and takedown defense. Round 1 takedown attempts. Okay. So round 1 takedown defense, plus this round 1 control time right here, tells me that he goes for takedowns, he gets takedowns, and he knows what he wants. He wants to take you down, and he wants to stay on the ground and just beat you up. And if you flip him over, or you take him down, he's going to turn around and flip you over. So Dumas wants this on the ground. There's almost, no question here. Even though he has this big reach advantage, I'm hoping he uses that reach advantage to just grab the legs of Michael from far away. Because I'm not sure that Cedric Dumas is going to win a kickboxing match here. Yeah, I really want Dumas to wrestle this out. And the model seems to think, let's actually look what the model says here. The model seems to think the reach ratio is a major advantage for Cedric. But this is such an important stat. Significant strikes land ratio, decayed adjusted performance, decayed average. That's such an important stat because it's just generally, I hit you more than I get hit. Which is like the fundamental game of MMA. Can I hit you more than I get hit? And he hasn't been KO'd as much. So Dumas's defense really worries me here. Even though his head defense is actually a pretty significant advantage, seems like he can avoid the punches until he just gets hit by that one big one. Slight age. Okay. He's younger. He can out-wrestle him. And he's got the reach to try and keep him at distance, I guess, throw a good feint, and then shoot the takedown and take him down. Honestly, looking at this, I would have thought this would be a little bit closer from the model's perspective, but the model says this combination of stats right here is very predictive. All right, well, I want Dumas to out-wrestle him. I wanted to out-wrestle him from round 1 moving forward, and use the reach to keep Michael off of him in the kickboxing. Use the reach to set up the takedowns and control. All right, well, I'm definitely putting it on Dumas. That about wraps it up. Again, the picks that I think should probably be hammered on are Cedric Dumas and Diego Lopes, and probably Sean Woodson as well. I would avoid Chase Hooper. I mean, if you want some free money, maybe. But really, there's no such thing as free money. Paddy Pimblett. I would definitely go with Paddy Pimblett here. Because these odds are like dead even. I'd probably stay away from this fight. Darren Elkins versus Julian. Nikita Krylov, I think he'd be a fine pick. And if anything, I'd probably recommend going for Bryce Mitchell here. Even though I'm betting against the AI, this is just stupid odds. The AI has this as a coin toss. All right. Now I'll see you on my Patreon. I'll get the backtested profit up there here pretty soon. Enjoy.